Well, my name's Sean, and I'm unemployed.
Don't be afraid to make hard cider. If Sean can do it, anybody can do it. There are 3 stages in making hard cider. Number 1 is fermentation. This is where you add yeast to apple juice and then you get hard cider. That's all you really need to do if all you want to do is make an alcoholic appley cider. But stage 2 is going to be the infusion of different fruits into the basic hard cider so that we get a variety of types. I want to do blueberry, strawberry, pineapple, and then keep 1 as apple. So then we'll have 4 nice varieties. Stage 3 is bottle carbonation. I will show you how to get a carbonated sparkling apple cider rather than just a regular one, because that's even better. In this video, I'll show you fermentation, and then in the second part of this video, I will show you stages 2 and 3. The first question you face is, which apple juice? Well, I'm using 4 gallons of apple juice from Walmart, and there's nothing wrong with that. For your very first fermentation, pick something cheap, all right?
And it's always important to remember that it's your first time trying and learning, and not to have high expectations of a superior product right away, because it's all about learning and getting the steps right the next time.
What we are going to do with this is fermentation, alcoholic fermentation. That happens when yeast eat sugar and produce carbon dioxide and alcohol. That's the process that these are going to go through. First thing you want to do is open these all up and pour out just a little bit of juice, maybe like half a cup's worth, because over the course of the fermentation, sometimes foam and froth gets created by the yeast, and you need to give it a little bit of headspace for that to happen so that the lid or the airlock isn't blown off. We gotta talk hydrometers for a second. No, don't be intimidated. Just focus. So the hydrometer measures the amount of sugar in your juice before fermentation. That's related to alcohol because yeast turns sugar into alcohol. The more sugar you start out with, the more alcohol you can expect to get at the end. You take a reading, a measurement on the juice before fermentation and after fermentation, and then you plug those 2 numbers into an online calculator, as I'm doing here, and it will tell you what the ABV of your cider is. You can either measure the juice directly in the original container or in a graduated cylinder. I can do both, as you see. We will be inoculating each of these with 4 different yeasts, one different yeast strain per gallon, because I'm really curious to see what differences the yeast make to the final flavor profile. When we add yeast to this, we can't just close off the container with a lid like that, because the sugar that's in here, half of it will become carbon dioxide gas. And if this were closed, each of these would explode. Boom! We're gonna be using a bung and an airlock, okay? The bung just goes right here in the opening to seal it up, and then the airlock goes in the bung, and then that CO2 gas pushes out through the liquid, and then nothing can get in. No air, bugs, or bacteria. The most crucial step that you want to get right is to sanitize all of your tools and all your stuff. The airlock, the bung, the hydrometer, anything else you use in your hands too need to be sanitized. I use Star San sanitizer. You mix 1/5 of an ounce in a gallon of water, and then you leave your stuff in there for about 30 seconds, and then it's sanitized and good to go.
Miles has put links to all the equipment we've used in this process today in the description below.
That's right, Sean. It's so natural.
So how much yeast do we put into the cider, Miles?
Well, Sean, it's not cider yet. It's 1 gram per gallon, okay? And the normal packets of yeast, like this one, have 5 grams each. So you can use 1/5 of a packet if you want. I'm just gonna eyeball it and use probably a little bit more than that. But what you wanna do first before you toss in your yeast, it's a semi-optional step, but it's one I like to take, which is to rehydrate the yeast because they're dry in there. Okay, can you open that?
So the different yeasts we're going to be using today include Premier Cuvée,
Lalvin QA23,
Safel SO4,
and bread yeast. Now I know what you're thinking. Why are we using bread yeast if we're making cider? Well, like I said, it's all Saccharomyces cerevisiae, and I want to see if bread yeast creates a substantially inferior product to actual wine yeast, or if it's just a subtle one. We'll find out, okay?
You know, Miles, fun fact about bread yeast. Back in the colonial days, there'd be a brewery and a bakery, and the brewery and the bakery would share the same yeast. The bakery would get it during the wintertime, and the brewery would get it during the summertime because it was warmer for the fermentation of the beers.
Wow!
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna, as I said, we're gonna be adding about 2 grams, close to half the packet's worth, except for the SO4, which is actually double the size of the other packets. We're just gonna be using a touch of that. Now this little experiment with different yeast isn't like to science grade. That's okay. That's not the primary motive of this video. We just want to do this little thing and see what it does. That's you critics out there. We'll give that about 20 minutes to rehydrate, and then we will pitch it, which is a fancy word to say we will put it into the juice.
There you go.
There you go. All right, Sean, let's play 20 questions.
All right.
You think of something first. Is it a person?
No.
Is it a place?
No.
Can I see it right now?
Yes.
Is it a wine-making tool?
No.
Is it a source of light?
Yes.
Is it the ring light?
Yes.
That was cool. That was fun. All right, so now just keep everything in order here so we know which one went in which apple juice, and then we just pour it in.
All right.
Just be careful.
Well, that looks fun.
Now, if you wanted to stop the process right here and just let this ferment, you could do that. But we just want to add one more thing to get the best final product, okay? And that's Yeast Nutrient. Just get a half teaspoon of diammonium phosphate, of DAP. It's what's marketed as Yeast Nutrient on Amazon or in a home brew store. It's very simple stuff. It just supplies nitrogen to your yeast. I don't actually have any, so I'm going to be using a half teaspoon of Fermade O, which is a little bit higher end, better nutrient, and I'm just going to put that in here. For people who know about tailored organic staggered nutrient additions, I'm kind of adapting that to this, but I'm making it really simple. So whatever your yeast nutrient is, add about a half teaspoon to each, okay? So now all that remains is to attach the bung in the airlock. And because as we talked about, this will allow all that CO2 that's made to get out without letting anything in. Now, some people, when they make their very first fermentations, will just leave the cap on here loosely so that no bugs can get in, but that CO2 can still get out. You could do that, but why not just spend $3 to get this little apparatus that you can use pretty much forever? And it's safer that way. Right, Sean?
Yeah, I agree.
Yep. So just put it in. It fits in real nice. If you come across different size bungs, 7 to 7.5 will fit into these kind of things. The other thing, if your bung is wet or if the opening to the jar is wet, it's not going to adhere, so you want to make sure they're both dry, which at the moment they're not, but we'll take care of that. Now that it's all put together and done, what can you expect over the course of the fermentation? Well, number one, look for production of CO2 or activity in the airlock after 2 to 48 hours. If you don't see anything happening in here, that means your yeast are probably dead and you need to get new yeast and repitch it. Number two, this is less an expectation, more a procedure. Store it in a cool, dark place. If you have a basement that's cool, store it there.
All right, and third, well, let's start that again. And expect your fermentation to take 1 to 2 weeks. Everything depends on the temperature you keep it at. It could take 2 if it's a little bit colder. If it's warmer, it could take up to 1 week.
Right. Once this is done fermenting, we will have a part 2 video in a couple weeks, which will show you what to do. Basically, you're going to siphon it out of here into jars, and we're going to add fruit to each of them, different fruit, to get a differently flavored cider. In the meantime, go watch more videos. Check out Sean's Instagram, and
Don't have them.
Oh, that's too bad. I know, I forgot that you're 50. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye.